We are the City of Mimesburg Parks and Recreation Department. We have 650 acres that we maintain and manage. We have 22 parks, 11 playgrounds, 11 park shelters, several park restrooms, a golf course, a cemetery, and another golf course that we're semi-involved in. We do a lot of event support, we do a lot of tree work, we do a lot of landscaping, anything and everything that you might see in a public park setting we are responsible for. So, with that being said, what skills and abilities do you possess that are relevant to the position that you're applying for?
We had a class at college that was required that taught us how to use a Z-turn, taught us how to use weed whackers and chainsaws, so that's some skills for me. I've also been using equipment in my past and have been working with my grandfather for a disaster relief team at my church. And some of the skills and resources I also have is the rest of my studies at school that has trained me to know what I am looking at and how to identify it. And I'm pretty good at teamwork if you ask some of my other co-workers at my other job.
Cool. That's good. What about attributes of your personality that make you a good candidate for the position?
So for my personality, I'm able to look at a situation and look at how to process it and get through it. We also look through everything of such as, I guess I'm repeating myself, of looking where we need to go from start to finish. I'm very organized in that way. I myself looks for leave it at that.
Okay. Can you provide an instance when you were tasked to work independently of a supervisor and how you handled that situation? So there's a lot of times in this role and probably in other roles that you might apply for or work for that you would have to be working independently without direct supervision or someone being there. But can you provide an instance when you were tasked to do that and how you handled that situation working independently?
So a couple weeks ago, I was tasked here to do mowing all day while my coworker was spraying weeds, and it was the first time I was on my own, so it felt pretty weird to do stuff at my new job, and I was very nervous I might screw up or do something wrong, and my fear happened. The weed whacker went down on me. The zero turns brake handle wasn't working properly, so I had to take it to the shop, and I spent most of my day at the shop getting things fixed and looked at. And I basically called my boss, Aaron, to see where I was at and why I was there, and also know what equipment was there so it could be written down and used as data.
Cool.
And that's all.
Cool. That's a good response. Good example. Another question: can you name invasive plants that you can identify in the field? Name all the plants that you can identify in the field. Invasive plants.
Invasive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, dandelions are actually invasive. There's also some trees, such as I don't know if sycamores are exactly invasive, but around here you see a ton of sycamore trees at our parks. And I can identify them by the stipule on the branches and the white bark if they're old enough. There's also a ton of flowers here, such as I guess it's not really a flower, but it's a plant. It's wild onions. There's also, losing my brain.
I'll give you a hint.
There's some poison ivy around here, a poison hemlock, and a ton of poison sumac as well. So those are some invasive species in the plants and trees specter. But if I went into the animal specter, there's a ton of brown frogs around here, or wood frogs. And there's also a ton of vultures around here that are kind of invasive.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask you another question here. How seriously do you take safety and caution in the field? And can you provide an instance when you cared for field equipment properly? Which you just did, actually. You just gave that scenario about how you handled the mower situation and the weed eater situation. But how seriously do you take safety and caution in the field?
For safety and caution, actually, yesterday, the 24th of June, me and my coworker Ben went to Ace Hardware and bought some gloves so we could have protection on our hands. My coworker Ben as well. We were cutting some low-hanging limbs a couple weeks ago, and I brought out my chaps and protective helmet. And when we're weed whacking or mowing when the grass is real dry right now, I usually wear my safety glasses so nothing hits me in the eyes or gets in my eyes. And that's some safety we have here. If I also get hurt, I'll report it to my boss if it's severe, or I'll report it to anyone near me so they can come and check if I need to go to the doctor or I can keep working.
Okay, cool. What about experience collecting data? Do you have any experience collecting data, and maybe provide an instance when you were tasked to collect data thoroughly and without supervision?
I haven't really been tasked to collect data at this job, but I have been tasked to collect data for my field biology class at Hawken College, and we were tasked to do a phenology site visit, which is basically a wetlands area based, and we go there every day, and we'd record data like how was the wind, what clouds look like, what animals were there, what macroinvertebrates were there. There were also, like, mine was at Ort Anderson Nature Trail, so I got to look at a beaver dam and a beaver storage and take data on them.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, that sounds fun. I wanted to go back to the invasive plants question. You mentioned poison ivy. I believe poison ivy is actually a native plant, but what about the woody brush that we see everywhere here in Ohio? There's one real stickler that I know you know about.
I can't think of that name. It's
We've got it out here on.
They have hollow.
We've got it out here on our tree line, and it grows up all over the place. You've probably been cutting it today, actually, at some point.
There's some honeysuckle all over the place, and you can also identify that by its hollow inside of the branch.
Okay, see?
Or the wooded part of it is hollow. It's a tiny circle inside of it. On the outside, it's not like any other plant. It's very woody. It's very big, and grows pretty fast.
So you're familiar with it. You just forgot.
Yeah, I forgot its
Forgot
name.
that big one. Yeah, gotcha. Cool.
We also have a ton of autumn olive, which is also an invasive species.
Cool. Do you have a valid driver's license? And also on that note, what equipment do you have experience operating equipment such as mowers, chainsaws, weed eaters, tractors, ATVs, four-wheel drive vehicles?
So back to the field equipment class, we were trained on tractors. We were trained on Z-turns. We were trained on chainsaws. We were trained on this weird weed whacker that had a saw on the end of it. We were also trained on Bobcats, the older version, and the newer version where you have to plug in a password to it. And Bobcats are skid steer, I believe. And that is all for that. But any of hand tools, my grandfather's most likely trained me on that. I do a lot of work for him whenever I get a chance. And as I've worked here, they've trained me on several other things. I believe I have to read a handbook to be able to even touch the chemicals
Mm-hmm.
for spraying.
Yeah, that's correct. We would want you to go through it's the pesticide applicators. There's a I can't think of the word of it right now. Trained service person manual or workbook that you have to go through that you can spray under other people. You don't necessarily have to get your license right away. We would want you to get your license eventually, but you can do some applications under someone else's license as long as you go through the trained service person. And that's a booklet, a manual. Maybe that's something we would want to look into at some point.
And actually, a week or two ago, we just did our CPR certifications for work here as well.
Cool.
Also, that includes first aid and CPR.
Cool. Very cool. Last question, I think, and then I'm see if you have any questions for me or anything else that you want to discuss. Do you have any limitations that may be viewed as weaknesses in the position, such as lack of experience, inability to hike long distances, anything else that you may view as a weakness?
I don't see any weaknesses particularly, but yeah, that's really all. I don't really see weaknesses unless I don't know how to use something, and I honestly don't like asking questions or asking how to do stuff. I usually try to find a way to find out how to do it on my own, and that's helped me out at this job where I can actually ask questions and not be like reprimanded or something like that. I can actually ask and learn how to do stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think that's an environment we try to promote. That's a good answer. Do you have anything else you want to discuss or talk about, or any questions? I think that's all for me.
Yeah, I'll ask a question.
Okay.
So how are positions like placed here? I know I'm a seasonal,
Mhm.
and how many months does a seasonal work?
Seasonal typically works from March 15th to October 15th. However,